Recording, so I'm going to try to sit up straighter and look more regal. Welcome on February 25th to our middle school parent coffee. And for better or worse, this is really a pretty informal gathering. I don't have a particular agenda to talk about. I just wanted us to have an opportunity to gather together and see what things you want to talk about. And if there are questions, if there are specific topics you would like me or us to be talking about. And as always, I think some of our best discussions happen when each of you feels free to join in and offer your own perspective. So maybe I will start with, I expect if you're like me, you're wondering what are our, what are our next steps with whether it's athletics or what can physical activity look like and how is that evolving with our middle school, because we've gotten messages about what that looks like for upper school. We can certainly touch on things about the start of next year, which we've received some information about, and a lot of it is certainly still to be figured out. So in terms of athletic pieces, so as we know, upper school teams has started doing conditioning workouts in January, had recently begun some of those then sort of sports specific practices evolved to where, say, the basketball team could be practicing if everybody had their own basketball and weren't sharing, which is the way I would have loved to play basketball, but I was made to pass sometimes. That then evolved into we can then share and start passing, still not scrimmaging, but you can throw a lacrosse ball around, kick a soccer ball, those kinds of things. So that is a recent development that actually I'm pretty excited about because it opens things up potentially for us. As you are probably aware also, the upper school and the other schools in our league are looking to have more of a normal spring athletic season with games and matches. And in order for that to take place, that involves COVID testing on campus of athletes and coaches. So that part is happening with upper. In terms of middle school, we've been doing twice a week optional conditioning workouts, and we've had a group of maybe 15, maximum of 20 students so far who've opted in, which has been sort of agility and conditioning drills on the turf field and some running around the track. The sharing equipment piece is, can open things up a lot for us, which, up to this point, our outdoor breaks and things, we've not been allowed to throw a ball back and forth or anything else. So we're still running these conditioning workouts up until spring break for the next, 3 weeks, 2.5 weeks. And we're looking to how to incorporate equipment potentially during our morning and afternoon break times. But certainly during those conditioning times. The things we're kind of grappling with it'd be great to toss some footballs and soccer balls out there on the turf field, that's again one of the, I didn't expect my favorite thing about this building would be the giant terrace on the turf field, but that's just made such a huge difference for us. I was telling Laura, yesterday was the first day in months where we've had lunch outside. And so we just made it an extended lunch, and they were out there for 45 minutes. And it was, I just think it makes such a huge difference. It could be that we start just throwing a bunch of balls out during break. The potential downside, which we always found when we, in previous years when we had break in the gym, is that there are downsides to having balls flying around. And unlike the lower school gym, we can't just put the curtain down and protect people from, I don't know why everyone has to feel like they have to take a half court shot rather than just shoot a layup, but that's how it goes. So we're going to explore how to incorporate the sharing equipment restriction during our normal break times. And we're considering what things can look like after spring break. So again, there may be, we do multiple phases and iterations during the spring. I don't expect that we'll be doing, well, I think I can with confidence say we won't be doing any competing against other schools in the spring. We're kind of bouncing ideas around. I'm not sure we will do sport specific things in the spring, because that still gets into bring your lacrosse gear and your baseball stuff and your football equipment. I mean, all that kind of thing. Some of what we're talking about now is what are some ways we can get a lot of kids involved at the same time that still kind of maintains some spacing, has a competitive element to it, but doesn't involve tackling of any kind. So we're still in the brainstorming phase of that, since really this week is the new information about the equipment sharing. So we do plan on expanding what physical activity looks like after spring break, especially, but it's not fully formed yet. Are there questions on that topic, or comments or wonders? Angry diatribes.
Do you think that as things kind of loosen up, that the ratio, the number of kids that can be in the classroom can increase from 12? Because I think it's 12 right now, right? Do you foresee that will have some kind of gradual increase?
Most of our middle school classrooms and I think upper school are maximum of 12. I'm not sure if that'll change this spring. Some of that will be, we'll have to see what the CDC guidelines are, and we are certainly hopeful that in the fall we'll be in a different place. So yeah, I mean, we're certainly willing to, and we'd love to see that. But I don't know that I have a lot of confidence for that changing this spring, but I think we're all really hopeful about. I think that's certainly a crucial part of what next school year looks like. All right, what else would we like to talk about? What else is on people's minds? Asking for a friend. Any embarrassing stories you want to share about yourself or your
Ryan,
children?
what are you thinking about doing for the 8th grade end of year celebration? See, look, if people are nodding, they liked my question.
That nodding doesn't mean they liked your question.
It does.
I was thinking about that too, Sabelle.
Thanks,
so.
Sally.
They could have been nodding to somebody off camera.
No.
A spouse saying you like a glass of lemonade. No.
I want to be clear. I like the question.
All right.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks. See, that's a real friend there.
Thanks. Thanks a lot, Mike. Always appreciate your presence and validation during these meetings. So yes, we haven't put anything out officially. I should know that answer. Okay.
No.
So at this point, families have received information about commencement?
Yes.
Okay. So our plan is, I'm trying to think about
what you can say. I
what-
apologize if you
they were
can't
from.
say what you're.
We would like to have something in person in terms of a promotion ceremony for 8th grade.
Okay, that's good. I mean, I just want to make sure that something is in the works, that people are thinking about it, and something to make the 8th graders feel special. I think that's nice.
Yes, we do.
Luckily, there's the outside space. I mean, you guys have the big terrace that hopefully there's the opportunity maybe for just something.
Yeah, so I'm not sure whether or not our kind of official closing program will be in person. I'm not or don't know about that, but we would definitely like the 8th grade promotion piece and kind of the official certificate promotion, end of middle school, promoted to upper school, ceremonious aspect. We that's something we weren't able to do last year. We would it's definitely looking a particular way for our seniors, which is great. And we are also wanting and planning to do the same, not the same thing, but something in person for 8th graders and their parents.
That would be great. I think it's such a great moment that they wait for, that 8th grade. I mean, they love the dance also. I think you kind of get it at that moment that you're going to high school. And last year was a shame that we couldn't do anything. So I think it would be great. But no House Olympics then. Nothing. Are we going to try to do anything with that, or?
No, and we haven't been doing a house system this year.
Like a colors or grades or even anything kind of virtually that we could do with that. Something fun.
We like fun things. We have not divided 7th and 8th graders into colors at this point. Now, whether we plan to do, outdoor fun activities for our middle school kids this spring, yes, we definitely want. Yes, we're exploring those things. I don't have any fully formed plans. I think some of it's connected to what activities can we do outside. But I think especially after hopefully emerging out of the winter, we're excited to do anything we can outside. A question about a virtual activity night. That's something we had looked at also. I know there's been a lot of discussion in the PA board as well. That Amelia has panned every activity as far as at least that's what the leak told me. No, I know there's been a lot of good discussions with parents and Meredith and others about things to do. I know there was, drive-in movie talk. There was various things. In terms of virtual activity night, that is something we've looked at here. In fact, I went to I attended a workshop that I thought was geared towards a bigger community virtual event. It ended up being more about kind of advisory activities that we're already doing, that wouldn't seem to translate well to a broader environment. But that's also certainly something we are looking for, and that our SCA kids are talking about. Their SCA thing is currently working on also some form of talent show, which is something we've typically done in middle school. So I think they're taking the lead on that. Other things we're wondering about, or questions that Mike McClemens will think are good?
Well, I don't know if Mike will think it's good, but just a question. That whole piece of the transition, Brian, I remember between lower and middle, very intentional. You were involved kind of at the wrap up of lower. So they had that transition piece. I was just interested to know what the thinking is, particularly some of the changes in like leadership and positions and stuff up the upper, like how y'all see that working.
Oh, well, in terms of, so in terms of transition, I guess I'll also speak to, if it's relevant, the kind of, I think the course selection process for rising ninth graders, which is coming up, and I know is also a big piece. So I don't know if we talked about last time, but we did incorporate tours of the upper school for our eighth graders. So we on a Wednesday when upper school wasn't in session. I know that's we've in the past, one important part of the transition has been bringing our eighth graders up into the upper school building and kind of doing a half-day shadow visit. We did do a tour a few weeks ago, which the feedback from the kids was pretty positive about, and we kind of rotated through stations where they got to hear from and speak to a member of the upper school staff. I think that was, I think, followed shortly thereafter. There was a rising ninth grade parent program, I think earlier this month. So in early March, as course selection process starts, for students, we'll have a kind of live meet with Debbie Ayers in the upper school to talk about course selection, where the options are, what they can be thinking about, what they should consider in terms of areas to stretch themselves, balance, all those kinds of things. I think that's on the calendar for, I'm not sure if March 9th is a Tuesday. I think it's March 9th is when the students are meeting with Debbie. And on March 10th, there's an eighth grade parent meeting with Debbie to also go over course selection. I and our advisors here will also, when course selection actually happens and opens up, is the week after spring break for rising ninth grade. For rising eighth grade, it's later in April, and we'll talk about that. And in terms of now thinking ahead to the very end, when we have whatever our promotion ceremony looks like, we expect to have a similar to what whether it's, I expect it'll be Rico Reed will come over and walk the students. I guess at this point we're thinking, if we're gathering on the field, that we'll actually walk into the upper school building, kind of like when in previous years with kids transitioning into middle school, we would kind of go up to the third or fourth floor. Other things in the spring, I know we've often had a parent-to-parent piece. We also did have a student panel. We had a student panel for our eighth graders around our lunch one day. Again, this was also a couple of weeks ago. That was, I was on that meeting too. I think both our eighth grade group did a good job providing questions up front and live, and the upper school students did a really nice job, I think, of giving really helpful feedback and authentic advice as well. I mean, not that it's ever not authentic, but it was not a promote the upper school program. It was, let's try to give you as real a sense as possible about what the transition looks and feels like as a student, and what things might be surprising to you, and what things you might be worried about, and how these current ninth graders, and we had some older students there too, can answer some of those. We've in the past, we sometimes had a parent-to-parent 8 to 9 program, and I'm kind of blanking on what the plans were for that this year.
I think that was more PA, and I don't think that we've talked about it with Laura. If people would like that, we can do that.
Yeah, totally.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, sorry, looking at the question in the chat about summary feedback for the kids who may need it. Maybe that's something we can, if you want to reach out to me separate from this, I could probably put together some of the things that had come up for the students who were there. You may have received the same information if you had gone to the parent program for current 8th grade families. I'll also say for course selection and things, and also any aspects of the transition, I think it can be, I know that Rico, Debbie, and others are available to meet with families. It's also a really busy time for them as they're doing course selection for the whole upper school. So I'm happy to be involved, and I typically am involved with helping answer questions of our current 8th grade families about the transition, which there's certainly things that should go specific to the upper school team, and there are things that I think I can answer at least well enough to help people get a sense of what that can look like. And especially as you're, thinking about, I've been recommended for no honors classes. Should we try to do one? I've been recommended for 4. Should I try to do all of those? Should we look to do, and what is the workload difference really feel like? So there are things. Anyway, I would encourage you to reach out to me and connect on that. And I can always, for things I feel like I'm not the best person to answer, I can help direct you to the person who is.
And the program guide that there's one for every division, I found when my son was in 8th grade and we were choosing classes, was very helpful. So because each section per topic kind of gives you the track that they could be taking, and so it's very helpful.
Yeah, it is. It's very comprehensive. It's a huge document, and I think part of a healthy transition is to not be overwhelmed by what that looks like. And I think keeping in mind that while there's an incredible assortment of course offerings, and for 9th grade, there are going to be some core area. I mean, the general advice is you're going to be taking the next step in the sequence in every subject. So there are some areas of choice for 9th grade. A lot of it is really just the next step. But it can still be helpful to kind of explore that, but just know that while there are opportunities for choice, it's not just a free-for-all of pick anything from these 80 pages of documents, and know that you can't really make a wrong choice for 9th grade that's going to derail your child for the rest of their lives. Other things that we'd like to talk about.
Brian, how's it going in the middle school? How are you doing? How are the teachers doing? Tell me what's going on.
Well, I feel like you're uncomfortable with stretches of silence.
I do not like silence. You know that. You've known me for 12 years. You know.
I know. You're right. I made a mistake by stopping talking. I should have continued that. No, I think we're, good question about how people are doing. That's certainly been an ongoing thing for everybody this year. It's not really almost been a full calendar year since our worlds have been turned upside down. I'm doing individual check-ins with everyone on our staff. While winter has felt long, and it's definitely been harder to sustain some of the positive energy when it's freezing. But I think people are still doing well. I mean, people are, I think I definitely, some weekends I feel like, wow, this is I feel like May tired, like I'm more tired than I should be, because I actually don't feel busier. But as we all know, everything just feels a little, just a little bit harder, a little bit more draining. Things continue to go well here. I feel like the kids continue to do extremely well. We've seen some slumping and some energy drops, and some a little more fluctuation from virtual to on campus, even though we've as a division, we have not had to be virtual since winter break, which is outstanding, except for those pesky weather cancellations. But no, teachers are good. They're still continuing to work hard. Obviously, I think the people had, once we got into, say, October, I think people settled into a rhythm of reality of, this isn't exactly the way I would like to be doing things, or I don't feel as effective as I normally do, or I can't, I don't feel as, I don't feel that I'm meeting the needs of this group that's at home and the group that's in person and the group that's in overflow in quite the same way that I'm used to. But, we've had a stable schedule. We've had, we've been stable in terms of being able to be on campus, and I think people are still doing well. I don't think anyone's going to be upset about spring break coming, but I think this is a great team here, and we continue to see that.
Can I ask a quick question, Brian? I have two
yes,
questions.
Before Sibel does again. Yes.
One is kind of feeding off of where you left that spring break. All breaks lead to concerns. I'm guessing that you guys will go through your normal communications of making sure people are very aware of what they're doing and their plan for return, because I think the kids want nothing more than to close this year out on a positive way and return back to school and be able to be back in school. And I think that, again, spring break leads to, just as any time, a concern of people traveling and all of that. My other question, separate from that thought, is capstones. The kids have been working, the 8th graders have been working really hard on their capstones, and I've found it very enjoyable, like watching Lillian prepare and finish and submit her capstone. How are you guys planning on sharing those capstones? Because I know in years past, parents could watch the capstones, see it. Now that they're all recorded, how are you guys going to share that with their peers? And how will that be handled?
Sure. Lillian actually said she wanted to make sure that we didn't share it with her parents, but for the others, we're going to proceed as usual. Now and for those of you who don't, so our capstone presentation is something that is something we do in 8th grade, and in previous years, it's a kind of a public speaking opportunity and presentation, sometimes with pictures or slides and media, and sometimes not. It does take many forms. We try to encourage kids to broaden their topic and make it something that is meaningful to them. In previous years, we called it inspiration speeches, which had some positive aspects where we wanted kids to think about what inspires you. And there certainly are some 8th graders who have felt inspired by something. And I think there are plenty of young adolescents who have not yet been inspired. And so we ended up with a template of, all right, well, let me think about a relative who passed away and that I learned something from. And then that became that we got a steady stream of those as kids sort of started thinking, well, I guess that's the template of what my inspiration looks like. So we're definitely seeing a broader variety since we've tried to kind of changed how we do the beginning brainstorming process. So they're thinking more broadly. So we get a range of, maybe I want to have a message about world peace. Maybe it's just something about me personally, something to help them express something about what makes them who they are or something that they're interested in. So this year because we can't gather, typically, as Sally mentioned, we would do a speech in Olson Theater, and all of our, excuse me, all of our 7th and 8th graders would be there, and the parents of those students who were speaking, and we would do a schedule throughout the year. So it was, say, maybe 6 8th graders on a given day. So something we had to adapt it to last spring that we've sort of evolved this year is now it's more of a pre-recorded presentation. So it's a little bit different presentation skill style, but because we won't really have that live speaking element to it. So anyway, so each of the students are putting together still presenting about a topic that is meaningful to them, and they're doing it in different ways, but it is a video presentation. So sorry, all that doesn't answer Sally's question at all yet. So our plan, again, the things we think are important are to be able to also show them to other students, that there's some aspect of getting feedback on it, and that it's shared with parents. So those are the elements that we've had previously. So in terms of showing with each other, we're going to be showing them within the advisory group, and we may only do it within the advisory group. So we've designated Monday afternoons during our flex block to be for 8th grade capstone time, whether it's planning or working on. So we are soon starting showing those presentations in the advisory group, and then consider whether to try to do that more broadly, and that students in the advisory will get to see it, and we'll do a little bit of a brief feedback thing, gentle feedback, but we think that's an important element of it. In terms of sharing with parents, last year when there were videos in the spring, I ended up pulling them all together and emailing each individual family. We may just make sure that the student shares it directly with their parent, and I will let parents know. So in case your kid tells you that I told them that they couldn't share it with you, I'll just make it clear that that's not the case. So it won't be they won't be shared with other parents, obviously, but we do want that piece to be in place this year as well. Does that answer your question? And are there other questions related to that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it does. I've I've seen Lillian's capstone when she presented. She was like, I recorded, done, and it was good. But I just wasn't sure like whether or not there was going to be a way that they kind of had that public forum still outside of just the advisory, because I think that honestly the kids capstones are inspiring to adults too. Mm-hmm. Just seeing how the students are processing things. So that's where I was curious of whether or not there was going to be a way that any of that was kind of shared differently. But it's a challenge with managing it through this year.
Well, it could be. I mean, in terms of having, we can't. Yeah, in terms of having I think that there's certainly ways of having students do it live. It sounds like part of what you're asking about is there a way that we're sharing kind of the collection of presentations for broader viewing. We're still open to that idea. Yeah, I'm definitely open to the idea.
And maybe the kids aren't totally bought into that idea. Yeah, but it's one of those things that, when you're the way that you guys have typically done the capstones where they're presenting to a larger population, it brings a lot to it. And you know, if whether that's just in the advisory and that's how it's handled, then, you know, I think that's, at least they have a group, you know.
Yeah, it's different from the whole 7th and 8th grade together. We've sort of
Yeah.
talked about that, and there are ways of doing that. We've it's interesting in talking with the students about it. It's some of them actually feel like that's more terrifying than standing in front of all of them in the theater, and I'm not sure why that's the case, but anyway, I think those are good questions and things we're still thinking about. I mean, we have a plan for at least the initial step of sharing them. I guess my preference would be that we have a bank of them and make them more broadly available, and we use them in different ways. I think some of that we may want to see how this first round goes. And you know, one of the things for parents in the past that we do invite the individual students' parents, but then there are also 6 other sets of parents who are also hearing their personal speech that in a way that makes sense from a logistical standpoint, but is a little bit, I guess, strange also that we're inviting other parents to hear what can and may be a very personal message. But so we're still kind of in flux, and if we'll see how this first stretch goes of sharing with advisories and see what the feedback is from our students. There's a question in the chat about a sense of how school will look next year. So at this point, what we've put out is our middle school plan is to again be in person every day. So that's been you know, in some ways similar to this year. The difference being is that families may not select virtual learning as an extended option for a quarter or a semester or year, so that that we're expecting all of our students to be on campus. So that's something that is different. A part that kind of remains to be seen there is, well, what if we're still in a period where someone needs to quarantine or be home, and how are we doing the can someone access virtually if they're in that position? So those are still things we're working on, but we're expecting to be on campus, all students on campus every day next year. So we maybe have adjustments to our schedule depending on, you know, some of which has to align with other divisional schedules. So I don't expect any major tweaks. It just could be, we still have made decisions about, are we still doing a 5-day Monday through Friday cycle and schedule versus the previous 6-day cycle we had used with letter days A through F. I don't know if that makes a big difference for family planning. I mean, I think that among the things that we're hoping will be very different is you know, potentially athletics, which is an important part of our middle school program, not in terms of competing for national championships, but in terms of starting to learn sport-specific skills, getting that engagement in a team sport. It's a really effective aspect of social transitions in our middle school as well. So we're hoping we can have have middle school athletics similar to what we've done in the past, which is essentially kids having practice every day, still within our school day ending at 3:30. We'll have to see about where we are about, you know, competing with other schools. We're certainly hopeful to be in a different position in terms of what our music classes look like, who have been the most limited by conditions this year. For lower and middle school, still the expectation is that we don't have virtual learning as an option, but that our students are on campus every day. For upper school, I know they right now, and at least the initial message was that we're still expecting to be hybrid. And a lot of that depends on, as Amelia asked earlier about, is the maximum numbers in a class going to change between now and that? I mean, that's a variable. It does make a big difference here. I know that both currently and certainly before next fall, there's a lot of time and effort being put into the goal of getting upper school kids on campus more frequently. And that's a time-intensive goal right now. I know a lot of people are working on, even ideas to kind of pilot this spring to see what we can do. I don't want to speak for the upper school, but I know there's been a lot of feedback, and I mean, we certainly want our kids to be on campus every day. I know the upper school has a bigger challenge because of the number of students. So while they may have to be hybrid in some form and not be able to have everybody every day, I know that they're exploring ways to get students on campus more frequently than this year. Currently, it's in the upper school, it's twice a week. Juniors and seniors run campus 2 days, and freshmen, sophomores 2 days. And otherwise, in terms of next year, I mean, I think those are the kind of most impactful things that can impact program. I'm not sure where we'll be in terms of trips. Typically we've done off-campus trips to DC for advisory day. We've done overnight trips for each of the grade levels. So, I've been in contact with with the group that we contract with, and kind of been punting it to future dates. So I've gotten some tentative dates in the calendar for October for off-campus overnight trips, if we're in a position to be able to do them then. So that's another aspect of the program that we're definitely missing this year. Are there more specific questions about next year that I may not have touched on? And who knows where we'll be in terms of vaccines and kids and vaccines, and what is that, what does that open up? What does that change? I don't have a great handle on that.
Do you know anything about how many more kids are coming next year through admissions per class?
Sure. Good question. I'm sure Mike thinks it's a good question as well. We are, and part of our goal in move in with the new building and moving 7th and 8th grade up here, our goal was to increase enrollment gradually up to the potential capacity of 100 per grade. For next year, we are I don't know if we're calling it our target number, but we're expecting, or we're expecting / hoping for roughly 20 more students next year in middle school. So we're in the mid 160s this year. We're expecting to be in the 180s next year. We've certainly had a lot of interest, a lot of great applicants. So we're in that position now, and hopefully continued low attrition. I know we do have a large 6th grade class this year, so that'll be a larger group than normal coming over into 7th. So I think things are looking good. We're also adjusting our staffing as we plan to with growing enrollment. So we're ready to accommodate some more students, and we're excited about it. Yeah, question in the chat about, yes, end of year ceremony, which we had touched on earlier. Our hope and plan is to have an in-person promotion ceremony for 8th graders this year. So yeah, still working on logistics and details, but we would like to have something special for our 8th graders and their parents in person. All right. Well, it's great to see all of your faces. I know some of you are upset that we can't be in person together, circled up. I know how much you love when I make you sit in a circle and greet each other like we do with our morning advisory. Some of you like it less than others, but that's okay. Part of being a middle school parent is that we have to put you into awkward moments like we do with middle school students. But anyway, thanks for coming this morning. I really look, anyway, one of the things about next year, I'm hoping we can actually have parents in the building and have some of these things in person, and so that you can be in here and get the vibe. It's pretty awesome. I think there are some discussions in the works about how to get some middle school parents into the building sometime soon, so stay tuned on that. And all right, I'm going to stop recording now.